First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to talk my kids into forgiving their dad? My kid's dad and I were married for a decade. He cheated on me multiple times and ended up leaving me for one of the women. This all came out during our anniversary party, which he actively helped me to plan. He went home with her that night and our marriage was over. I was heartbroken, angry, humiliated. Worse still was people in his life knew about it. His younger brother and two of his friends were actively encouraging it and laughing behind my back, and he was joining them. Finding it all out was hard, but our kids never heard it from me what happened. I learned how to fake a smile and be civil, and I learned how to keep a distance without tension or bringing my kids into it. He and his wife treated the kids well, and I tried to focus on that while my kids were around so they would never know. I have healed, but there will always be some anger there. Not because of the cheating exactly, but the way he treated me. Allowing me to believe things were fine, while laughing behind my back with his buddies to humiliate me when we were supposed to be celebrating a milestone with our friends and family. And even afterwards, he wasn't exactly kind to me. My kids and I always had a good relationship, and this seems to have bothered my ex's wife, who, they were never very close, and she started drinking a few years ago. All the kids are grown now, so it wasn't a huge concern to me. But a few weeks ago, she seemingly decided to rant and rave at the kids, revealing the affair and saying they treated her unfairly. The kids are mad at their dad and her. My ex came and asked me to talk to them and convince them to forgive him. I refused. He claimed I was an A and putting my feelings above theirs. But in reality, we have talked. I have told them they should not put my feelings into this, but I won't tell them not to be mad. They know more than I ever would have wanted them to know, even if I had chosen to tell them myself, which I never did. I didn't want to burden them or make them feel like they had to pick sides. I wanted them to have a healthy childhood. Am I the a-hole if I don't encourage them to forgive their dad? I know my ex is mostly worried he won't get to be grandfather to our first grandchild if the kids cut him off. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole at all. Kids learned this from his new wife and he wants you to tell them how to feel? That is a special kind of stupid. Worst thing is, he doesn't even seem mad at her, just me. It's like they blame me for her telling them. It's dumb. Info. Do they know everything by now? The full story? Or just some incomplete version? They know everything. Then he should realize that his kids hate him for 1. Him cheating on their mother. 2. Him treating their mother like crap. 3. Him running away with his mistress in such a public way. 4. You still being kind enough to them and sparing them the details, and also not making him look like a douche, which he didn't deserve. It's one thing you not telling them, so not to poison them or whatever, but him to not have owned up to it. Yeah, big man cheats on his wife and laughs about it, but can't take responsibility even so many years later? They have every right to be mad at him, and he has to take it like a man and suck up to those kids as much as he can. Not the a-hole. You behaved really admirably here, and your kids can see that. Everyone's living with the consequences of their actions. I tried. It was not easy, especially dealing with their dad and his wife. But my kids were so young and struggled enough with a divorce. I could never have hurt them more by telling them what happened. Not the a-hole. Your kids are their own people. They'll forgive him in their own time. Or not. He made his bed and now he has to lie on it. Exactly. They are all grown with their lives. They will decide in their own time and in their own way. Now for the second story. Will I be the a-hole if I uninvite my dad and stepmom to my wedding after finding out they cheated 20 years ago? I'm engaged, getting married in February. Recently, my fiancé and I were at dinner with my stepsisters. Their mom remarried my dad when we were young and we were really close. I don't really even see them as stepsisters. My fiancé was talking about how cool it is that we're close and asked how old we were when we met. Oldest sister, only 6 months older than me, and I were disagreeing about the timeline of when we met. I remember seeing stepmom around and specifically going to their house. Sister remembers that time, but no way, because they live in that house with their mom and dad. We then realized that their divorces were final with a month or so of each other, and I definitely knew who my stepmom was before that. We all remembered it as both parents were divorced, then met, but now that I'm really putting the pieces together, that isn't the case. I'm also incredibly close with my mom, and she has always hated stepmom, but she played nice for the most part. I always thought she was just jealous of stepmom. We all confronted them together. They just sat wide-eyed surprised we remember all that. And essentially, they didn't go about it the right way, but they loved each other and eventually decided to be together. All of us are freaking furious. I've always idolized my father, and girls look up to their mom as well. I asked my mom about it, and she burst into tears about how she didn't want me to hate my dad. She put on a brave face with the two of them for 20 years now, and had to do it alone. Discussing with my fiancé, I don't want to subject my mother to that on my wedding day. She thinks I'm being extreme. Admittedly, this is new information to me and raw. I do love my dad and my stepmom too, but they lied to me for 20 years essentially. Will I be the a-hole? Edit. I'm a man. Apparently, I'm using the wrong form of fiancé. Also, I haven't mentioned this to either of my sisters, and they're both in the bridal party, but I know the older one was as shocked and angry as me. Younger was too young to really remember her parents together. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It's your wedding, and therefore your choice who you invite. But I talked to your mom first about it, and really think it over with your fiancé so you don't make a decision you might regret later. You and your stepsisters have a right to be pissed off about this, but uninviting people that you admit to still love about seems to be an overreaction. Something else to remember, they didn't lie to you for 20 years. Their relationships and the issues caused by it had nothing to do with you and your stepsisters. It was their issue. Your mother did the right thing by not destroying your relationship with your father because his infidelity doesn't mean he was a bad parent. That's especially true since you said that you've always idolized him and you're all close. No, when you cheat and have kids, you hurt the kids in their own right. The kids have a right to be upset and work through whatever feelings infidelity brings up. They absolutely did lie to Opie for 20 years. If the kids had known about the cheating, it might have been harder for everybody to play happy family. Doubtless, dad and stepmom knew that it would be harder and wanted to avoid that. They were selfish. They lied. Not the a-hole, but as others have stated, I think you'll regret it, especially seeing as you have such a good relationship with them. This is possibly unorthodox, but you could always ask your mother to be the one that walks you down the aisle, although doing so might create unnecessary drama. That said, she's held onto this burden for years to help preserve your relationship with your father, and I feel compelled to applaud her for that. Regardless of what decisions you make, I hope your wedding day is a happy one. Congratulations. Edit. In all honesty, I just assumed Opie was a woman. Sorry about that, Opie. I'm a dude, but was already planning on doing a son/mother dance. Thanks for the suggestion though. Might just have my mom escort me down. No a-holes here, in the current situation, but be honest with yourself about why you're doing it or for whom. Your mom kept quiet all those years because she didn't want you to hate your dad. She thinks uninviting him from the wedding is extreme. It's not what she wants. If you're angry because you feel lied to, okay. I lean towards thinking it's none of your business, but you feel how you feel, and it's your wedding. But don't hide behind your mom, who's the actual injured party in all this. I fully agree with this. Opie is entitled to his feelings and to invite/uninvite anyone from his wedding that he chooses. That said, this is something that was truly between his parents. They worked hard to co-parent and keep the kids out of their marital affairs. Reddit tends to think cheaters are unworthy of forgiveness or ever moving on. But let's be real. Relationships are sometimes very complicated, and things aren't always as black and white as one side being good and one side being the scum of the earth. Sadly, Opie's mom was the offended party, so I think that her feelings should be considered. She seems to just want to move on without the drama or Opie choosing sides, and this whole mess is probably just making her relieve something she doesn't want to. Now, for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my children's grandparents their other grandchild is not my responsibility? I have 2 sons with my ex-husband. 2.5 years ago, he left me for another woman who was pregnant with his child. Once the divorce was finalized, he lost visitation rights to our children because of an unsuitable home environment, and he refused supervised visitation. My boys never met their half-sibling because of this. Until my ex passed away and his wife dropped off the face of the earth, leaving the child with my ex's parents. I then agreed to facilitate a relationship. The grandparents, however, were not happy with this and wanted me to take in this child and raise them because I am the mother of their siblings, and the child's mother is likely to never come back. They say occasional visits are not good enough. They also say that I could provide a better family structure than they could because they would never grow up doubting they were loved by a parent. The truth is, I could not bring myself to be active in this child's life. It's not the child's fault my ex had an affair, but I would never be able to give them the love I give my boys because they're mixed up in the mess my ex created. And the truth is, I don't want to be this child's mother or love them. I want as much of a clean break from my ex as I can get while still allowing my boys a relationship with their paternal family. The grandparents are now very unhappy with me and try to change my mind, and a few close friends who were supporting me have become divided. One of my oldest friends told me she believes I am doing the wrong thing refusing. She told me my children and this child would be better off if I just embrace the child and learn to love them. She believes it could heal me too. Another very close friend believes I am doing the best thing because if I feel this way, regardless of whether it's right or wrong, it would not be good for the child. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Jesus, I'm so sorry for you. You're right that the child is not your responsibility, and I think you're also right in your decision. If you know you can't give them what they need, then it is probably for the best that you don't take them in. And hell, any of these friends who think you are wrong should feel free to contact the grandparents and offer to take in this kid that they have no connection to. Exactly. No connection would actually be better than the extreme negative connection Opie has with this child. This kid is a constant reminder of one of the biggest betrayals and most painful times in Opie's life. Even if she did agree to take the kid in, they would grow up under the shadow of the pain caused by their father. Even if Opie was a total saint and never once let slip even a shred of her negative feelings in the presence of the kid, an impossible, superhuman feat. The truth will come out eventually, and the kid would be psychologically damaged growing up in that environment. She believes it will heal you too because it will be a nice story. Life is not a story. Not the a-hole. The grandparents raised a cheater and the broken family is proof of that. They just want you to take the kid so that they can pretend all's well that ends well. Agreed, this scenario would make the perfect rom-com movie where things like limited finances, housing, work, and time constraints don't exist. But all of these and more exist in the real world, and I respect Opie for being honest about her limits. Not the a-hole. While it is unfortunate that this child has lost their father and that their mother ran off, this child is not your responsibility. You should never take in a child whom you do not want. Your former in-laws and your friend who think that taking in your husband's affair baby would heal you are the a-holes. Take care of your children and stand your ground. Good luck. Part of me wants Opie to give out contact details of these friends to the ex-in-laws as interested parties, so they know what it is like to have someone try and foist a random child on you. Am I the a-hole for gifting my mom and her husband a book on cheating for their anniversary? I'm 16 male and I love my mom, 35, but when I was 10, she had an affair and left us. I visited her as often as I could and she always seemed so happy when I was there, but I hated her new family so I stopped visiting. Honestly, we rarely ever saw each other after just for my birthday and events really. She wants us to be close, but I want nothing to do with her new husband, so I've kept my distance. Except on February 20th. My dad announced he'd be out on business till the 12th, and my grandparents are stuck visiting relatives in Italy, and so I really had nowhere to go. And my mom jumped at a chance to have me stay with her. And just my luck that my mom's anniversary with her husband was on Sunday. I haven't had a good time here at all, so all I do is stay in my room doing homework or go out with friends to avoid family activities. Because it sucks seeing how lovey-dovey she is with her husband, and how they seem like the perfect family with her daughters. But the morning before her anniversary day, she came to my bed and tried to cuddle with me like before she left us. But it made me angry. Like, we can't go back in time and pretend it's how it was. So I just pretended to be asleep and stayed curled up and frozen till she left. I started crying because of that, and I felt angry and snarky. My mom majored in literature, so I got her a copy of Anna Karenina for her anniversary. That book's about a lady who leaves her husband and son for her lover. I've never read it, but I watched the movie with my girlfriend and I hated it. The anniversary party was on Sunday. Everyone was having fun but me, and then people gave their gifts. I gave mine, and when my mom saw what it was, she seemed shocked, but just said thanks. The party ended like an hour after, but at night when she was in her room, I heard her crying really loudly. So I kinda eavesdropped a little and heard her saying stuff about that book and me, and her husband trying to calm her. The next day at breakfast, she left for work early before I woke up, and her husband straight up called me Nahal and other stuff for gifting them that. It's been a few days now, and my mom has barely talked to me. Honestly, I feel so wrong I made my mom cry, but at the same time, I don't want to be here and she knows that. So am I really the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Definitely not the a-hole. For one, Anna Karenina is a classic and a great gift. For another, if the shoe fits, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. She wouldn't take it so hard or understand what you were implying if she didn't already feel that way. Not the a-hole. Your mom had to face her past horrible behavior, and your gift caused her to have to confront the fact that her affair affects you negatively to this day. Her husband needs to stay the heck out of it. If he says anything else to you, perhaps you should challenge him on it. Oh, so you'd be okay with my mom cheating on you and walking away from you and your kids for a new man? Because that's what your behavior is telling me. And from the point of view of the kid who was left, I can tell you it has affected me in a negative way ever since it happened. And your crappy attitude is the largest reason why I don't like to visit with my mom. I don't like you, never have. So keep your opinions about me to yourself. Don't let your mom's tears guilt you. Did any of your tears after she left your family ever move her to action? Follow her lead on that. That is a stone-cold gift. A+, not the a-hole. Seriously, that was amazing. I'm very curious as to what your father would have to say about this. Is there any way that you could please update us? Thank you. I'll see. I made this backup to rant about my mom, so maybe I will. Not the a-hole. My dad cheated on my mom when I was in high school and went on to marry the woman he had an affair with. It has changed my relationship with my dad forever. Especially because he tried to force the one big happy family thing with her and her kids, as soon as he sold our family home and moved in with her. Your mom does not get to force herself back into your life on her terms, the cuddles, to make herself feel better, and in the process making you feel worse. My dad did the same, and it's awful. You're not a teddy bear. She needs to recognize the lasting damage she's done and stop expecting you to fit the role she's assigned you in her head. Next story. Am I the a-hole for getting upset at the jokes that I am not family? Plus little update. I, Pam, 29 female, am 4 months pregnant with my fiancé Matt, 34 male, and my first child. His family on the whole are very welcoming and often include me, except for some comments that they make that really hurt my feelings. These comments always refer to me not being a part of the family. At our engagement party that his parents wanted to throw for us, I made a speech saying thank you to the best in-laws. And his mom made a statement in front of everyone how I shouldn't say that as we are not family yet. I would like to add that his mom has had a few phone calls with Matt's ex-girlfriend in front of me, where she would be reminding the ex that they are family. 2 days ago, the mom said that she wanted family photos, but could only do it once my baby was born as I won't be family until then. The whole family then proceeds to tell me how we must not be too sure that we are having a boy, and I'm not allowed to buy boys' clothes. They rained in our parade as we were happy with the news. We would have been thrilled either way, and feel like it is because they thought we were going to have a girl. Matt at first told me that they are joking with me, and that they wouldn't if I wasn't family when I try to talk to him about it. He has recently started to see things from my side when I pointed out that my family doesn't do this. Then today, I'm on a family group and the uncle posts this exact message. Dear family and Pam, I want to have a get-together for my birthday and was planning a day out in the countryside on Sunday. Is everyone available? And Pam? I sobbed and lost it. I phoned Matt and said I'm leaving the group. Before I left, I replied, sorry, but I have family things that day, and exited. His uncle thinks that I can't take a joke. Matt supports me on this and understands why I'm hurt, but a part of me feels like maybe I overreacted. And what if I just can't take a joke? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. This hurts that the unmarried ex-girlfriend is considered family. It appears that she still is, and you're not. Does Matt have children with the ex-girlfriend?
They do not have any children together, but her mom and Matt's mom are best friends. He finds it awkward that she brought it up, but he never says anything. Just to add, she cheated on him and treated him like trash, and this hurts me even more that she is considered family. Sounds like your fiancé needs to have a come-to-Jesus talk with his mother about this, that she is choosing someone who cheated on her son. Like this says more about her than anything else. Not stay home. Don't invite them to any baby-related things since they're not family. Where's your husband/fiancé in all this? Why can't he have your back? So he originally said that they were joking with the original comments. That means that they think of me as family. He loves his family, and I get that it is hard to realign, but he has slowly been considering it from the receiver's side. However, after what his uncle posted, he is pissed at them and said enough is enough, and it isn't a joke anymore. He has apologized and is now standing firmly with me. Next time they say it's a joke, ask them to elaborate. And what part is the joke? It's only a joke if both sides are laughing. They're just being a-holes. It might be tough for your fiancé to realize his family is very toxic. Update. Matt's mom phoned to say how awful that message from his uncle was, and how she is glad I stood up for myself, which was very ironic. Matt actually took the phone call and set things and boundaries straight with his parents. Turns out, in the last few days, Matt's sister also told his mother that Matt's ex and her mother are not family and stood up for me. Things are looking much brighter. Added, I wanted to say a massive thank you to you all. I am a person who backs down easily and always wants to keep the peace. This has helped me to realize that when things are not okay, then change them. And it is okay to set things right with Matt so he can sort it with his family. All of this thinking of family has me thinking of Vin Diesel Fast and Furious memes, to be honest, and I'm having a good giggle. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not telling my daughter's father that she has cancer? I, female 24, have a 3-year-old daughter with my ex, male 27. We split up in December 2020 after I found out he cheated on me, and since then, he has been almost completely absent in my daughter's life. He has visited a grand total of 10 times, never pays for any costs at all, insults both me and her, and has made nasty posts on his Instagram calling me an ugly, cheap woman. It has made several posts calling our daughter ugly as well. Flash forward to a few weeks ago, and my daughter started complaining of pain, and was running a fever and had some pretty nasty bruising. I freaked out and took her to the doctor, only to be told that it was a virus that would go away, and that it wasn't COVID or flu. I called my ex and was trying to tell him how worried I was, but he told me he didn't care and hung up. Because of this, I cut him off, and just resolved not to tell him anything else. Eventually, I took my daughter back to the doctors and begged them to do something else. Blood tests and other tests were performed, and it turns out she has B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia. This is the scariest moment in my life. As I sit here writing this, my daughter is down for sedation and counts. We've been in the hospital since her diagnosis 2 weeks ago. I've cried more than I've ever cried in my entire life, and seeing her tiny body infested with this horrible disease is almost more than I can handle. Last night, I made a Facebook post about my daughter. My Facebook is private, and I'm not friends with my ex or any of his friends. I'm friends with his sister though, but we haven't talked since I broke up with him, so I pretty much forgot about it. Well, she saw the post and told him. I didn't check my phone most of today because I am so preoccupied that I don't have time. When I opened my messages today, I saw over 20 messages from my ex and his mother, calling me horrible names, telling me I should have told them, and that I'm an awful person for not telling them. He called me a cheap woman again, and told me that it was his daughter too, and he had a right to know about this. I asked if he would like to come see her, and he declined, but twisted this to his family, and now everybody's mad at me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You already called to tell him she was ill and in the hospital. When he said, I don't care, and hung up, what precisely were you supposed to take from that, other than his words at face value? If you feel the need to drop a clanger, I suggest a group text including him and all his family, so they all get it at once. Dear a-hole and family, I would like to give you an update on daughter's condition, but unfortunately I do not feel comfortable doing this. You see, when I originally took daughter to the hospital and was told it was a virus, I called A-Hall and he told me in no uncertain terms that he did not care and hung up on me. Since then, I have taken his words for face value. Never mind the terrible names he calls myself and daughter. Given the texts I've received from everyone since then, I can see that I was correct in feeling that none of you truly care about daughter, since no one bothered to ask how she is and only proceeded to attack me. You should all be ashamed of yourself, but that's probably too highbrow for trash. From now on, unless you can be civil and helpful, don't contact me. OP. Thank you. Someone else at least pointed out the fact the man, I say this as a noun and nothing more, is abusive towards a little girl. Like, what kind of father, if he was a good one, would tell the mother he didn't care that his kid was in the ER? Especially since kids' immune systems aren't exactly stellar. And at age 3, kids like to stick random objects, trash, toys, and so forth into their mouths, so the common flu, cold, and everything else is common. Add in a pandemic, and it's not a fun time for kids. And I totally agree with the note. I'd screenshot all the texts and voicemails, some can be transcribed into text, and add them to the note. And say, this is the crap he's been sending. And I'd include previous ones prior to this showing him not caring about his kid. I just hope she'll be okay. Thankfully, it's been caught early, so she has amazing chances. Jesus, I'm so sorry this is happening. 100% not A-hole. Also, screw him right in the ear. You tried to tell him she was sick, even if you didn't know at the time it was cancer, and he blew it off. End of story. As for the rest of the family being mad at you, if you're not mad at him for calling you a cheap woman and his own daughter ugly, well, screw him. They suck and their opinions don't matter. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents, especially my dad, what happened to my brother was partly their fault because they enabled him? The problems with my brother's weight became so bad he qualified for bariatric surgery. Before the surgery, he ended up being taken to the A&E and was admitted. The doctor told him he needed to lose weight. His food intake was supposed to be controlled, but instead of losing weight, he gained nearly 4 stone, nearly 50 pounds. Turns out, my parents, especially my dad, were sneaking food to him on their visits. My brother lives with my parents, and they bring him food because he's unable to go out or make it on his own. He chooses to eat, but lately he relies on my parents for meals. My dad was even caught bringing him food he isn't supposed to have. The hospital has social workers and the authorities involved. My parents, especially my dad, are being looked at for neglect. And although my brother is an adult, they are looking at whether my brother could be classified as vulnerable due to his addiction, although he is a mentally competent adult. I'm not sure how it will go, as I don't live with them or know the law in this area. But my parents are banned for seeing my brother right now, and the hospital is trying again with some weight loss prior to surgery. My brother needs round-the-clock care, so he's still in the hospital. His weight last I heard is 40 stone 10, 570 pounds. I'm not sure now as the hospital isn't giving my parents updates. When my dad wouldn't stop calling me angry and upset over it, and saying the authorities are out of line and trying to get me to help fund a legal challenge, I told him he shouldn't have brought food to my brother. My mom is furious that I upset him, and says my brother didn't like the food they were giving him, and that dad was just doing what he thought was best. Should I have not said anything about my dad enabling or been honest with him? My mom says I crossed a line because I'm not a carer for him, and it's the crux of the arguments I've had with her. Not stay home. Your parents are literally killing your brother. Hopping on top comment to say, if the brother isn't completely dedicated to weight loss, bariatric surgery isn't going to help him long term. I'm on a waiting list for it myself, so I'm researching it as much as possible. You can still eat terribly if you want to with high-calorie lighter foods. You're just initially forced to eat smaller amounts. If you want to stretch your stomach out again, you can, but not following doctor's instructions. OP, you used stone. Are you in the UK like I am? There's years-long waiting lists for it on the NHS if so, and usually you have to lose 5 to 10% of your body weight and keep it off to prove you're committed. The surgery is just a tool. It doesn't do the work for you. He has to want to use it. Please consider talking to him gently and make sure he wants this. If he doesn't, it's not going to work. Not stay home, and you were right. Your folks are enabling him. But unless he wants to live differently, this isn't going to help him. Good luck, OB. Not stay home.
It is partly their fault. Not entirely, but partly.
If they deny it, they're delusional.
Until he got into hospital, the nanny gains were 100% their fault because they were circumventing the system with a person who they knew would be vulnerable and eat what they brought, not stay home. They're causing harm to your brother and should be cut off. If they were good parents, he wouldn't be morbidly overweight. They are killing him with misplaced care, not stay home. To be fair to my parents, my brother was nearly 29 stone when he went to live with them again. Prior to that, he lived on his own and was already obese. My parents, especially my dad, enabled him at his problems, but they were there when he was on his own already. Your parents are sour, they're facing consequences for disobeying hospital's rules, and expect you to participate in the same fantasy that what they're doing is best for your brother. Your parents are delusional. Am I the a-hole for telling my deadbeat dad I don't care about him or his family in front of his kids? My dad abandoned me when I, 16 male, was 2. But I remember what it was like without him and how crappy life was when he was dodging child support. The only reason he started paying was because his license got suspended and he was screwed without it. I think I was 7 when we started getting that money and he had to pay the backdated support too. When I was 10, I had to take a DNA test because he questioned whether I was really his or not. At the time, we had no idea why, just that I had to take the test. We later found out it was because he had gotten married and had a couple of kids, and he wanted to focus his resources on them instead of me. He tried to get the child support reduced, and even tried to stop paying again, but the consequences would have been much harsher if he had continued. So he started paying again. 2 years ago, he moved back here with his family. He ignored me and I ignored him. His wife approached me and my mom a couple of times, but she wasn't someone either of us wanted to talk to, so we didn't. I saw him with his kids a few times, mostly when I was walking by the elementary school or if I went to the mall with friends. He's playing the role of a good dad to them right now, or at least that's how it looks. Does it bother me? Kinda. I think it's crappy that he moved back here, instead of staying the heck away after abandoning me over and over again. I'm in therapy and I know I don't ever want a relationship with him or any of his family, including his kids. That's something therapy has helped me fully realize and work on. I won't be a prick to his kids if they approach me, but I'm not going to give a relationship any chance. I'm an only child in my heart, and that's not about to change unless my mom has more kids. The current issue is something I don't have all the details on, but his kids recently found out that I'm also his child. They wanted to know me. He tried to downplay it by saying he just found out and wasn't sure if I'd be in their family. But they keep talking about it. His in-laws are coming into town in a couple of weeks, and he and his wife know the kids will mention me. His in-laws won't like the fact that he abandoned his child. He used a different word, but he abandoned me, so I'll use that. Now he wants me to come to dinner at his house and act like we all just found out. He said he could deal with what the kids wanted after, but he didn't want his in-laws to know the truth. He approached me at the mall to ask me to do this. I told him no and started to walk away. He had his kids with him. I need to mention that. I didn't interact with them and I hardly interacted with him. Like I said, I was walking away, and then he told me I owed him that much and that he was paying for me, which was more than most dads like him do. He said I could do him and his family this one thing. I told him I don't care about him or his family, and that he should leave me the heck alone like he has for the last 14 years. Then I moved faster so he couldn't keep talking and annoying me. When his wife found out, she went to mom at work. My mom works at a popular store in town, and she had seen his wife there a lot. His wife told my mom she needed to teach me to react better in front of kids, and that I didn't need to be cruel. My mom got mad about the encounter and told me I did nothing wrong. But I guess I do feel kinda bad for saying it in front of the kids. Not that I want to seek them out and apologize or anything, because I don't want to engage at all. But am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He brought the kids with him on purpose to use as leverage. So it's on him, not you. You tried to walk away and not involve the kids, but he wouldn't let you. Good for you for staying strong. It was a manipulation tactic. So was him cornering the kid on his own, in public.
It's also a manipulation tactic to show up at his mom's job to shame her. This could have been an email request, but I guess you can't get the emotional manipulation they're looking for over email. I think you should go, say hello to the in-laws, and tell them that he's a deadbeat who abandoned and neglected you for 14 years, and that you're only there because he demanded you be there to make him look good. Then turn to him and tell him he's a pathetic excuse for a human being, and that there couldn't be a worse father. Then leave. Full nuclear. I endorse this, but feel like it will do more damage than good for OP. Not the a-hole. Your dad abandoned you, dodged child support, questioned whether you were even his kid, and only started paying when legally forced to. Now he wants you to lie for his convenience? Absolutely not. You don't owe him or his family anything, and his entitlement is ridiculous. The fact that he said you owe him because he paid child support, something he was legally and morally obligated to do, just proves how little he actually cares. As for his kids, yeah, it sucks that they had to hear that, but that's on him, not you. He made those choices, and now he has to deal with the consequences. You were put in an unfair situation and just spoke the truth. You don't have to play nice for a man who abandoned you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to babysit my half-siblings and telling my dad I'm not his backup mom? For context, my 19 female parents divorced when I was 12 because my dad cheated on my mom with a younger woman, Emily, now 31 female. It was a messy, ugly divorce, and my relationship with my dad has been strained ever since. He married Emily pretty quickly, and they now have 3 kids under 5. Ever since the kids were born, he has been constantly asking me to help out with babysitting. I live with my mom and go to college full-time while working part-time to cover my expenses. Despite that, my dad calls me almost every week, begging me to come over and bond with my siblings by babysitting. He says Emily is overwhelmed and needs a break. I honestly don't care. I never wanted siblings. And I'm still not over the fact that his affair blew up our family. I've told him I'm busy with school and work, but he keeps guilt-tripping me, saying things like, family takes care of family. Last weekend, he called again, practically demanding I babysit because Emily had a mental breakdown. I lost it. I told him, I'm not your backup mom. You chose to have more kids, and that's not my responsibility. He got quiet and then said, I thought you were more mature than this, before hanging up on me. Now both he and Emily have been sending me messages, calling me selfish and saying that I'm abandoning my family. My grandma even chimed in, saying I should help my father in his time of need. But I feel like he's just trying to dump his problems on me because he made bad choices. My mom thinks I did the right thing, but now half my family is mad at me. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help and saying what I did? Not the a-hole. When Emily tells you that you're selfish for abandoning your family, you can tell her not nearly as selfish as you and my dad were for breaking up my family by lying, cheating, and having an affair. She's got some nerve. Oh, and Dad, Grandma just volunteered to look after the children because she believes family should help in times of need. Came here to say this, he has some nerve lecturing you on family responsibility. I would tell him that he learned how to treat family from him. He needs to be forced to his own bad choices. Seriously? He says family takes care of family, while he blew up his entire family by cheating? Don't be their little Cinderella. You have no obligation. I have a dad who tried to guilt-trip me into taking care of all their animals, while he and his new family went on several vacations, and I was not once asked to join, not even if I paid for myself. When I finally mustered up the courage to say no, he threatened to euthanize my favorite dog. I called my therapist and had an emergency meeting, and she told me to stand my ground. So I did. He did not go through with it, but he cut contact with me for several years as punishment. Not the a-hole, obviously. People say family first can buzz right off. He cut contact. Was it a punishment or a relief? In hindsight, it was a relief. It really showed how little he cared, and that made it easier to keep away when a few years later, he was left by his wife and came crawling back like nothing had happened. Lol.
Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law to get over herself and stop trying to one-up us? My 29 female wife, 27 female, and her sister, 30 female, got pregnant around the same time. The babies are the first of a new generation on their side of the family, so everyone was excited. Sister-in-law was further along, but my wife ended up giving birth at 32 weeks. Plus, she had some complications that kept her hospitalized. My nephew was born 2 weeks later at full term. Apparently, sister-in-law resented having her thunder stolen and felt like she and her new baby weren't getting enough attention. She keeps making these comments like she's trying to one-up us. First, she said how sorry she was that my wife missed the golden hour because they had to take our son to the NICU. This upset my wife, since during her hospitalization, she was often too sick to visit the NICU, and she already feels terrible about missing skin-to-skin contact in those first few weeks. After we started bringing our son to family gatherings, sister-in-law started comparing the boys, saying how much bigger and more alert her son looked compared to ours, and how he had hit more milestones. Last weekend, we had lunch at my in-laws. My wife and I were excited to tell everyone that our son laughed for the first time earlier that day, 3.5 months old. Mother-in-law and father-in-law were having a good time watching the video when sister-in-law made another comment about how her son did that a month ago. I don't know why, but that was the last straw. I had just about had it. I told sister-in-law that she's pathetic for trying to one-up a freaking baby, that her full-term son wasn't special for being more developed than a preemie, that she should get the heck over not giving birth to the first grandbaby. Needless to say, this ruined lunch, and my wife's family is mad. I admit I was harsh with my words and tone, and this was the first time I had confronted her family like this. Up until now, we had each handled our own relatives, but these comments upset my wife and ticked me off. So am I the a-hole for being so harsh and not staying in my lane? Not the a-hole. How did your wife respond? Happy that I spoke up, because she was having a hard time telling her sister it makes her feel like crap, but feels bad that they're mad. Then you're good. You stood up for your wife and child and she appreciated it. It would be helpful if she outwardly had your back to them as well. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law is a grown woman competing with a preemie. That is embarrassing behavior, and someone needed to call her out. Your wife has already been through hell and back with a traumatic early birth, NICU stays, and recovery. And instead of supporting her, this woman is out here making passive-aggressive jabs about things your wife already feels heartbroken about? Absolutely not. And the worst part, she's acting like her full-term baby is some kind of prodigy, when, newsflash, that's just how development works. No one is shocked that her baby hit milestones sooner, because he literally had a 2-month head start. That's not an achievement, that's basic biology. Your reaction was warranted because this wasn't a one-time slip-up. This was a pattern of nasty behavior that your wife has been dealing with for months. And instead of anyone else in the family checking her, they've been letting her act like a jealous brat. And now they're mad at you because you finally said what everyone else was thinking? Too damn bad. Maybe they should have spoken up sooner, and you wouldn't have had to. You weren't harsh. You were correct. She needs to get over herself and stop trying to compete with a baby who fought just to be here. Sister-in-law's behavior is gross. When her little prince falls behind his actual peers, you and your wife can secretly giggle. Seriously though, I hope your wife and little one are recovering and improving as expected, and will pull through all of this with time. Good for you for defending your family when, clearly, no one else could be bothered. At a minimum, her parents really needed to step in, not the a-hole. Justified a-hole here. Sure, you could have handled it differently, but that might not have stopped the crappy behavior. You had justifiably had enough and said what needed to be said. Your sister-in-law will likely think twice before making any more comparisons out loud, which needed to happen. Who knows why she is doing it? She might be postpartum. She might just be jealous. None of that needs to concern you. You did what was right for your family, and you put the bully in her place. Bravo! Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister with her children and telling her she chose her crappy life so now she has to deal with it? When my sister, 26 female, and I, 24 female, were kids, we hated each other. My sister was very hard to get along with, and as a result, she never had any friends. She's the type of person who always thinks she's right and can never apologize or admit when she's wrong. As an adult, she still has no friends. She decided to drink the Tradwife Kool-Aid. She met her husband in college, got pregnant, and dropped out. They have 4 children under the age of 8, and the youngest is quadriplegic due to spinal damage and a birth defect. I just finished law school and I'm starting my career. My husband already has an established career and we're dinks. We don't intend on having any children. My sister has historically talked down to us at family events. She says we don't even understand what we're missing out on, that we'll never know what true and unconditional love is, etc. Very condescending, as always. Lately, she and her husband have been fighting. Apparently, per my mother, he has never let her access his income. He gives her cash for groceries. The bills and everything else have always been in his name. Apparently, he's been cheating too. My sister asked me to watch her kids on the weekends so she could save up money to evaluate her options, aka leave her husband. When she came to me and asked, I said, "But isn't being a traditional wife your calling? You've told us this several times." "You must have forgotten, but traditional wives aren't supposed to work." I kind of laughed as she explained that maybe being a trad wife isn't for her after all. Eventually, I just shut her down and told her that she picked this life. The life she has always insisted is so superior to mine. Now it's time for her to learn to deal with the problems that come with it. My parents can't watch her kids because my dad works on an oil pipeline and my mom is already too old to be working the hours she is. Our other relatives don't live close enough to help. She also asked my parents to move in with them, but my dad shut it down. He can't really stand her kids. Am I the a-hole? My family thinks I am. I had never heard the term dink until I started my current job. Some guy was asking about my family, and I explained that my wife and I don't have kids. He goes, "You guys are dinks." And just before I could be like, "Your mom's a dink," he said, "Double income, no kids." That could have ended awkwardly. Haha. That's why the couple on Doug with no kids were named the Dinks. It was supposed to seem like their last name, but had a double meaning. That's actually where I learned about the term dinks. My friend told me she loved that the Dinks' last name was a joke, and I was like, "What do you mean?" And she explained that it meant dual income, no kids. A quick Google search tells me North Carolina has a divorce from bed and board option, which allows for a court-ordered separation to help initiate that 1-year separation period. Adultery, which you mentioned, is a qualifier. Google also tells me that North Carolina allows a parent to file for custody and support even while married. You say you're a lawyer, or at least a JD, and you can't even put 5 minutes into basic research for her? Come on, do better. As for money, again, credit cards exist. She can apply for one without his knowledge and, even with a low credit limit, could afford an Uber to go to court, meet with an attorney, open up her own bank account, etc. She doesn't have any proof of his affair. He admitted to it in passing, but there are no texts or anything. I'm not sure if they would qualify for that. I don't work in family or divorce law, so I'm by no means an expert. I just know that it would not be easy or realistic for a divorce. Also, I don't think taking out a credit card to rack up debt is a smart choice. She won't have any way to immediately pay it off or even make the minimum payments and will likely just end up tanking her credit. With ruined credit and a long wait list for Section 8 housing here, I don't think she would be able to find somewhere to live. It's just not looking like a great choice overall. First story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for correcting school papers in front of my ex-wife's husband?" She remarried a few years ago and made it clear that she wanted no more kids. That really upset him. He awkwardly tries to bond with our kids, and a few times he's crossed boundaries. I really have no relationship with him, but there is tension between us. My oldest started middle school, which required updating his registration information. My ex said she used the same information as before, but I wanted to change my email address. I went to his school, and my ex's husband was there. He was dropping off some stuff for my ex. I didn't acknowledge him until I saw the paperwork for my son. The information was written out not by her but by her husband. He had listed himself as the parent and me as an other contact. I looked at him and said, "Really, Brent?" He looked at me and asked, "What is it now? You put yourself as Tyler's dad?" "It was a mistake if I did." "Yeah, okay. Well, it's a mistake I'm correcting right now." It was embarrassing for him, and I clearly put him on the defensive without warning. Like I said, I don't talk to him. He told my ex I made him feel like a criminal in front of everyone. My ex understood correcting the information, but said there was no need to call him out like that. All I said is that he won't do it again based on how I handled it. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Doesn't sound like calling out to me. You just noticed, clarified, and corrected a mistake that he made. It only becomes a problem if it was intentional, and there is cause for people to get emotional. It was intentional. No step-parent puts themselves as the parent unless the other parent isn't in the picture at all. Opie is Tyler's dad and is in his life. Sounds like Brent wanted to take Opie's place since he married a woman who doesn't want more kids. If kids are so important to Brent, divorce the ex and marry a woman who wants kids. This. I am not on my fiancé's kids' registration as a parent and only as an emergency contact behind the parents and able to pick up the kids. Approved release person. When I complete the paperwork, my daughter's father is absolutely listed as a parent with my fiancé in a contact/pickup role, and that's with my daughter's dad living 4 hours away from her. Stepdad wanted to cause drama and tried to pull off a low-key who's in charge, and he got caught. This is the small stuff that in aggregate amounts to parental alienation. Not the a-hole. It was not a mistake. He did it on purpose. Why? Because he literally put himself as the parent and you as the other contact. I think Brent wants to replace Opie as Tyler's dad. Not the a-hole. I find that really creepy. Nobody accidentally lists himself as the parent and the child's parent as the other. If he did not want to be publicly embarrassed, he should not have deliberately lied. It's good you corrected him publicly because it will make it more difficult to be sneaky in the future, and the school will keep an eye on him. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not visiting my in-laws after my brother-in-law told my son to call him daddy? I, female 35, lost my husband a year ago in a car accident. This was the most devastating thing that ever happened in my entire life. And I got to say, I lost dear ones before this tragedy, and it's completely different kind of pain. I have a 3-year-old son that my in-laws help take care of. My mother-in-law, sister, and brother-in-law have been supportive and helped a lot. My brother-in-law would literally spoil my son with new toys and clothes, and they do a lot of activities together. My brother-in-law is divorced and has been coming to my in-laws' house all the time. I have either my mother-in-law or brother-in-law babysit my son while I work. My job requires me to go on trips between 5 days to 2 weeks, depends on my circumstances. And I had my first business trip after my husband's passing 3 weeks ago. My brother-in-law offered to look after my son while I'm gone, and I thought nothing of it but was a bit worried since my late husband was the one to look after our son whenever I'm away. I called every night to check in on him and things were going well. I returned a few days ago, and I went straight to my in-laws' house where my son was. I spent a day there talking to my brother-in-law about what they did and such. I was playfully asking my son if he had a good time, and he told me that Daddy took him to see the ducks at the park, and I paused after I heard him call my brother-in-law Daddy. He did it again while my brother-in-law was talking to him. I was confused. My mother-in-law was just looking at me but said nothing. I asked my brother-in-law and he said it was nothing. But my son kept saying Daddy till the evening. I was so mad I corrected my son many times, telling him that this is uncle, not Daddy. My brother-in-law got mad and told me to let my son call him whatever he wanted. I confronted him about teaching my son to call him Daddy, and he admitted he did that. He argued that I wouldn't have a problem if I let my son call some stranger Daddy. I yelled at him and told him to stop whatever he thinks he's trying to do and to respect my boundaries. He walked out immediately, avoiding to discuss it any further. I was also mad at my mother-in-law as she was seeing all of this and not doing anything about it. I took my son and went home. My son still says Daddy, and it hurts every time because he hasn't used this word since his dad's passing. I told my mother-in-law I won't be visiting any longer. and she started texting me saying I can't do that and I have no right. She said that I was being ungrateful for the people who supported me and I should stop being mean and using my son to get them in line, demanding that I visit with my son. The trip was 3 weeks ago. It's my first since my husband's passing. He passed away a year ago. I'm sorry if anyone got confused by that. I just haven't been myself lately, I'm sorry. I thought I should mention this in case it is relevant. My brother-in-law's ex-wife had a stillbirth in 2018, and they both got separated months after. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your brother-in-law did something psychotic. That is so freaking weird and messed up. I would avoid that wacko too. And my condolences for your loss. It's so psychotic that I wonder if Opie's in-laws are planning to try to get custody of her son. With her traveling for work, and then helping even when she is working locally, they spend a lot of time with him. If they can also say that the son considers brother-in-law to be his dad, they might have an argument for at least joint custody. I really hope I'm wrong though, because taking advantage of Opie's circumstances in such a way is nothing short of depraved. Yeah, totally. I would 100% not leave your kid with these people anymore, Opie. I wouldn't put it past them. They truly sound bonkers. Holy smokes, not the a-hole. Your in-laws are way out of line. How in the world does your brother-in-law think he is entitled to be called daddy now? That man has issues. And so what if you started dating again? That does not mean your son has to call that man dad. Is there any way you could have your family help to take care of your son? I would not go over anymore if brother-in-law was there. And maybe not even go over at all, because your mother-in-law is enabling your brother-in-law to do this to your son. There's also a huge difference between her entering into a relationship with a man and her son eventually calling him dad if they got married or something, versus her brother-in-law assuming that role in her and her son's life. Super creepy. Not at a-hole. That's his uncle, not his dad. It's great that your son can count on his uncle for a father figure, but if your brother-in-law keeps insisting on calling him daddy, he's either trying to replace your husband or he's a creep. Either way, your brother-in-law was wrong to teach your son to call him that. Now for the next story. Would I be the a-hole if I don't go to my daughter's wedding? When my daughter was 17, I found that my ex-wife had been cheating on me with my brother. On top of that, my wife and I had 4 kids together, but during the divorce, my wife produced DNA tests to show that my youngest 2 children weren't even mine. They were his. They're still married and nobody on my side of the family talks to my brother anymore. A few years ago, my biological son got married and he didn't invite his mom, and everybody on my side of the family went. Now, my biological daughter is getting married, but nobody from my side of the family is going because my ex-wife is going. My daughter told me she didn't invite my brother, but I told her that I'm not going if my ex is there. Because knowing her, she'll try to bring my brother as her +1 or something. Despite what happened between me and my ex, I know mothers and daughters have a different type of bond, and she wants her mom to be there just as much as she wants me there, but I don't think I can. I have my brother and my ex blocked, but she still managed to send me a message recently telling me to suck it up and stop making this all about you because this is our daughter's wedding day and more important than any history we have together. I kind of feel bad because my daughter has actually been the most vocal of my children against what her mother did. During the back and forth during the divorce, she spoke up and said she wanted to spend her last year before college with me and not with her mom. And though I hate to give ultimatums, sometimes in life you just have to choose a side. Would I be the a-hole if I don't go? Now for the top comments. You would be the a-hole. For once, your ex-wife is right in that message. Your daughter's wedding is more important than whatever animosity you have going on between you two. And if she ever has children, are you willing to miss all of their birthday parties, graduation ceremonies, and weddings too? Your daughter has nothing to do with whatever's between your ex and you. It isn't her fault, and the wedding isn't truly about you or your ex. It's about your daughter. Do it for her. You would be the a-hole, absolutely. I know this is tough to hear because the infidelity isn't your fault. But grow up, please. Ignore her. Have a friend come with you to distract her if she tries to talk to you. This is your daughter, and her wedding isn't about you. It's supposed to be your special day, not your let's be petty day. Exactly. He should go and stay on the other side of the room. He can even ask to be seated far from his ex. If they accidentally come face to face, he can smile and walk away. People will know why, and he won't be considered rude. Really, we are talking about biting your lip for half a day so his daughter can have the wedding she wants. You're the a-hole. You have a choice whether or not to go, but be prepared to throw away your relationship with your daughter. You are basically saying that your hate for your ex-wife/brother are more important to you than your love for your daughter. You have stronger feelings about your ex than your daughter. The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my dad he doesn't get to ask me to keep him in the loop about my life when he didn't tell me when he got engaged? My dad and I, 21 female, aren't close. I would say we talk maybe once or twice a year normally. The fallout happened when I was 14. My mom had died 5 years before, and he told me he had gotten engaged the day she and her 2 kids were moving in with us. He told me he had been afraid to tell me, and just wanted me to be happy for him and to embrace the fact our family got a little bigger. I was so hurt. Her kids knew about it for over 2 years. They had met my dad. They had spent time with my dad. They had been told about me and they were expecting me to be excited to meet them. They even started planning a thing for us 3 kids to do at the wedding to show how happy we were to become a family. I was so mad and hurt. I never ever expected my dad to stay single forever, but he wanted me to be happy without any warning of what was happening, without any chance to get to know them. His wife's sons were already telling people they were getting a big sister, and I was clueless about the whole damn thing. I had maybe 6 hours to prepare, and then they were looking for physical affection, which I wasn't able to give, and my dad was hurt and pissed. And I have never gotten over it. I decided to just move on with my life. Even when I lived there, I didn't really talk to my dad anymore, and I became a lot more independent and tried to live my own life. We had a huge fight when I was 17, and he told me my mom would not have wanted me to make his life harder, and she would have been disappointed I wasn't willing to embrace new people for him. I told him she would have been disappointed in him for dropping it all on me when it was too late for me to get used to the idea, or to get to know them before they became an everyday part of my life. I told him mom had struggled so much when her dad died, and her mom remarried. And imagine how she would have felt knowing her own husband would hide the fact it was happening until the new spouse was moving in. Anyway, I started dating my boyfriend in high school but never told my dad. We moved in together just before lockdown, which is when my dad found out. And then he was outraged and never told him I was dating or moving in with someone. I called him a hypocrite and told him he can't expect me to keep him updated on my life after what he pulled, when he still doesn't see why it would have fractured my trust in him. He's been reaching out more than ever, but it's only to complain. Am I the a-hole though? I wonder if I'm just being a petty jerk. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. And your dad using the "your mother would want you to" line was emotional blackmail. It was, especially when he knew she had lost a parent young too and struggled, for different reasons, but still. The fact he thinks my mom would be like, "You did good to him," makes me kind of mad. She was a firm believer in giving the kids room to breathe and get to really know a new partner/spouse/family in the case of a divorce or the death of their parent. I hold the same view now for the reason of what my dad did to me. Not the a-hole. He doesn't get to be pissed at you when he's done the exact same thing. Good on you for calling him out on being a hypocrite too. It was an awful thing for him to do, and not really comparable to you moving in with/having a boyfriend, as it doesn't directly affect him unlike what his actions did to you. This is a point I make too. He doesn't have to live with my boyfriend. I have to live with 3 strangers who expect a daughter and a sister from day one. Not the a-hole, but as others have said, have a think about what, if any, relationship you want. If he's reaching out more than ever, then he wants a relationship. He's just going absolutely stupid wrong ways about it. And if you want to try for it, you need to set limits and remind him he can't play overbearing dad after so long a fracture. I don't know about that. I think it's just mad I did the same thing to him, only way less serious since he doesn't have to change his household. I honestly think if he really wanted a relationship, he would start acknowledging where he messed up and apologize. But maybe I'm wrong.